So if you're sitting the new GCSE, you'll probably know that you have to remember a bunch of equations, not just use them like you used to have to. Even at A-level physics, you don't have to remember really any formula. So, sucks to be you. So, I don't have a great memory, I've got to be honest. It was only when I understood the equations was I able to remember them. I'm going to go through all of the equations that you might have to remember, you might not have to when it comes to the day, and it will make a big difference in what marks you get in the physics papers. So I'm going to start off with the electricity equations and then go from there. I think electricity is one of those things where people can struggle. First one you need to remember is the most important, and that is Ohm's law. This is by far and away the most likely equation you're going to have to remember for electricity, and that is V equals IR. Now, if I just tried to remember these equations in word form, I couldn't do it. So it's a good thing to be able to remember them in symbol form. What does this stand for? Voltage, or potential difference, equals current, which is I, originally from intensité du courant, times resistance. All of electricity comes back to this equation in the end. So you can guarantee that you are going to have to use this equation in your physics exam at some point. Okay, we know that voltage equals current times resistance, V equals IR. This will also come in handy when you get given a graph of current against voltage. It might be that way around, it might be the other way around, doesn't matter. If you're asked to find the resistance at any point on this graph, get that point and you think, right, I know Ohm's law is V equals IR, all I have to do is rearrange this to find R. To get rid of the I from one side, it's being multiplied, do the opposite with the other side, so it turns out the resistance equals voltage divided by current. So that's how you deal with these graphs. All right, so we know that voltage is I times R, but what is voltage itself? What is PD? So voltage, or PD, is the energy usually lost, it can be gained, but we're going to go with lost for now, lost per coulomb of charge. In chemistry, we talk about moles. So moles are this big number of atoms or molecules, 6.02 times 10 to the 23. And we deal with those because dealing with individual atoms is just crazy. The numbers are too big. Similar idea with electrons. Instead of dealing with individual electrons and how much energy they have each, because that would be a tiny, 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 tiny number, instead we deal with coulombs of electrons. If voltage is the energy per, and the magic word there is per, because whenever you have a per, that means a slash or it means a divide. So if it's energy per coulomb, we can say that's energy, which is E, divided by Q, which is the letter we give to charge. This is probably an equation you won't have to use, but it's there just in case. So I'm going to put box around V equals IR because that's super duper important. V equals E over Q, not that important. Now current, again, what is it? Current is the rate of flow of charge. Again, we have this word rate here. Now, if you know that something is a rate, this indicates that it's per second. That's always the case. Okay, it might be per minute or per hour, but generally in science, in physics, it's per second. So if you have per second, we know that current is going to be charge, which you said was Q just now. So the number of coulombs that we have, and divide that by what? What is per second? So there's going to be time. This can come up. I have seen it come up already in a specimen paper. So it's something that you need to get your head around. Because we have the rate in there, it just means that thing divided by time. Power takes many forms, but it always means the same thing in the end. And this is going to come up later as well. Power, what is it? Well, we know that it's the rate of energy transferred or used. So power, we know, is measured in watts, but how do we calculate it? It's the rate. What did we say rate meant earlier? It meant per second of energy transferred. So power is energy per second. So if you can remember that, you can probably figure out that the equation for power is going to be energy divided by time, because it's a rate. We have that thing per second divided by time. And you can think of this as joules per second, because when people see watts, and that is the same thing, a watt is just 1 joule per second. That's all it is. Again, if you want to rearrange this to find energy, we want to get rid of time to the other sides. It's being divided by here, so we times by it on the other side to get energy. Energy would be equals to power times time. However, there are alternative ways of calculating power when it comes to electricity. So yes, power is equals to energy divided by time, but it's also equals to voltage times current. All right, I haven't stuck the times in there just like usual. Those two things next to each other are multiplied. So even if you don't have an energy or a time, you can still calculate power by just taking your voltage and timesing it by your current. Now I've left this open because there's a couple of alternatives that we can have here. Let's have a think. If we put Ohm's law in here, we end up with something different. So let's say that we don't have a voltage, but we do have a resistance. Let's put in Ohm's law. We know that P equals VI, but we know that V equals IR. So if V is IR, we can put IR instead of the V in there. So we end up with IR times I, or in other words, I squared R. Now there is another alternative if you can figure it out, but I don't think that's going to come up if you ask me. Very, very important equations there, especially this one because this crops up not only in electricity, but also in mechanics with things moving. So this is one of those times where units are your friends. If you can remember that power is joules per second, you can think that, oh, it's joules. Energy per second, that means divided by time. If you can remember what the unit is, that can help you figure out what the equation is if you can't remember it. Let's get on to mechanics then, shall we? Things moving and acceleration and speed and all that jazz. All right, let's start off with just the speed equation, or rather we should say average speed, because they do like to put this in there. It's average speed, but I'm just going to leave it as speed for now. Now, what's the letter given to speed usually? Well, we can use S, but actually, because we use suvat nowadays, we probably should use V. And speed is another rate. But what is it? It's the rate that something moves at. So all we have to do is take our distance, divide it by time. Again, what's the unit of speed? It's meters per second. If we know that it's meters per second, then we know it's going to be distance, meters, divided by, because that's what that slash means, divided by time. So again, if you can't remember the equation, but you remember the unit meters per second, you can figure out what the equation is. Again, that will help you when it comes to a graph of distance against time. If you have a graph like that, what about this graph gives you the speed? Well, you know that speed is distance divided by time. When you have a graph, when you do what's there divided by what's there, we end up with the gradient. So the gradient equals the speed. All right, acceleration, here we go. Now acceleration is a really, really important equation as well. It's one that people always forget. But just think about it. When you ask how fast a car can accelerate, you always say it goes from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. I wish my car did that. But can you see we're going from 0 to 60 miles per hour. We have two speeds. So when we do acceleration, we actually need a change in speed. Now, I'm going to put a delta there. Whenever you see a delta, that just means change in. So change in V, delta V, divided by the time. That is the equation for acceleration. What's the unit for this then? We know that speed is meters per second and time is seconds. So we got meters per second. Combining those seconds, we end up with meters per second squared. Now again, we can have a graph of this. We can have speed against time. This time, the gradient is going to give us the acceleration. But there is something else that we can get from this graph as well. If you think, how do you find the area of a triangle or the area of a shape on a graph? Well, you times the sides together, don't you? Area under the graph. How did I get that? Well, have a look here at our speed equation. V equals distance over time. What is distance if we rearrange it? It's speed times time. Again, to find an area, we times two things together. So that's what reminds us that it's the area under the graph that gives us the distance. Sticking with acceleration then, let's do Newton's second law. Very, very, very important equation. It's force equals mass times acceleration. F equals ma. And what does this show us? Well, it shows us that when there's a force or a resultant force acting on an object, we get acceleration. Notice that it doesn't actually have speed in it, just acceleration. So that means when there's no force, there's no acceleration, but that doesn't mean that something stops. It just means it carries going on at the same speed. It might have been 0 to begin with, it might be 1,000,000 miles an hour to begin with, doesn't matter. Now weight is very similar to calculating force, because weight is a force. I'm going to use W for this. So we know that because weight is a force, it's going to be mass times an acceleration. But what acceleration do we use? We use G. and that is 9.8 for Earth. So something that you always have to remember, really important equation, weight is mg. If you just remember that, weight is mg, then you should be fine. Mg, mass times gravitational field strength, that's 9.8 for Earth. Now this one's fairly new as well, work done. Now, I do not like the term work done, and you can tell by the fact that I can't write it either. Work done is just another name for energy, aka energy transferred by a force. So that's all it is. It's an energy, we measure it in joules, but because we give it this special name work done, that confuses a lot of people. Now you might see W for this, but I don't like that because it's an energy. So I'm just going to call it E. What do we do to calculate it? It's just force times distance. If you push something with so many newtons over a certain distance, you can calculate how much energy you've used, how much energy you've given it, by just timesing those two together. Now, sticking with forces, we have one more force one, and that is Hooke's law. And that's all to do with springs. All this is F equals KE or KX. I prefer X, but for some reason people prefer E nowadays. What does this stand for? Well, the force you need to pull a spring with is calculated by the spring constant, that's what K is, times the extension of the spring. It's not the total length of the spring, it's how far it's stretched from its original position. What is the unit of the spring constant going to be? Well, if we rearrange this to have K by itself, we have force divided by extension, which is in meters. So spring constant is usually in newtons per meter. All this tells you is how many newtons you need to pull to stretch it 1 meter. Okay, it might be in newtons per centimeter, but it's probably going to be newtons per meter. Momentum. Momentum is how hard something is to stop, as it were. We can give it the letter P. You might know it as something else, and we times just mass and speed together. Think about it. If something's heavier, then it's harder to stop. If something's going faster, it's harder to stop as well. So momentum is dependent on both these things. All we do is times them together. Again, what's the unit of this going to be? Well, we have kilograms and we have meters per second. So the unit is just going to be those smushed together. Kilogram meters per second. Oop, nearly went A-level there. And you should remember that in any collision of any kind, whether it's things bashing together or a gun firing with recoil or anything like that, total momentum is always conserved. Very, very important ones coming up. Energy. I can pretty much guarantee that these will crop up in your exams. At least one of them, probably both. You need to remember the formula for kinetic energy. That's the energy that something has if it's moving. And we're going to say E because it's just an energy, just like any other type of energy. Half mv squared. It's a half times mass times speed squared. Now, just as an aside, you might have to rearrange this to find speed or mass, but let's say that we want to find speed. Let's do one step at a time. Let's get rid of the half to the other side first, so we end up with 2 lots of the energy equals mv squared. See what I've done? All I've done is times the whole equation by 2. Or you can just say I've taken the 2 from the bottom and stuck it up top on the other side. And let's keep going. We want to get rid of the m to the other side. We're timesing right now, so we want to divide by it. And we end up with that. Therefore, one more step, we have to square root the whole thing. So that means speed is equals to 2 lots of the kinetic energy divided by the mass. So if you've been given joules, the kinetic energy, double it, divide by the mass, square root it, and we end up with our speed. Very, very important equation. This equation usually comes as a pair with gravitational potential energy. They go hand in hand. God, it took me ages to write. That's why we write GPE for short. You should remember that GPE equals mgh. What does that stand for? Just mass times gravitational field strength, which is 9.8, times the height. Now, something that you might not know is that the height that we use in this equation is always the height that something drops or the height that something is lifted. So let's say that you're on top of Mount Everest and you throw something up 5 meters. The height is not going to be the height of Mount Everest here. No, it's just going to be that 5 meters. So that height is actually just a change in height. So how far has something gone down or up? Now, more often than not, you'll get given a question where you have to equate these two things together. What do I mean by that? So if something falls or it's thrown up, we can say that KE equals GPE. Quite often that'll be the way it goes. You might be asked to find out what the GP of something is at the top of a roller coaster, let's say, and then by the time it falls, what is the speed? Well, if you found your GPE, then you can say that that is equals to the kinetic energy at the bottom because all its GP is gone. So we now end up with just half mv squared. Okay, just a few random ones to finish off then. The wave equation is one that you have to remember, and that is the speed of a wave, v. Some people use c, but I like to use v because it's a speed, just like anything else really, is frequency times wavelength, or v equals f lambda. This is one that people struggle to remember in simple form because we have this upside down capital Y here, which is the Greek letter lambda. But all this is frequency in hertz times the wavelength in meters. How do you figure out wavelength? Well, it's just the distance from one peak to the next on a wave. Now let's say instead you actually haven't been given a wave with distance, but a wave with time instead. So what if you have a wave that is 10 seconds long? So it takes 10 seconds for one wave to be made and then the next peak to come along after that. How do you find the frequency from that? All we do is do 1 divided by this time. We call that the time period and we give it the letter capital T. Now this might turn up on your formula sheet, so you might not have to remember it, but it's useful to have in your head. Anyway, if you don't know the frequency, but you actually know the time between two waves, between one wave and the next, then you can just do 1 divided by it to find the frequency. What is the frequency in this case going to be? It's going to be 1 divided by 10, it's 0.1. The unit for that, hertz, as per usual. That's the unit for frequency. Okay, another random one, density. Density tells you how heavy 1 meter cubed of something is. We give it the letter rho, if you want to remember it in letter form. It's not a P. We take our mass and we divide it by our volume. It's not voltage, that's not velocity, speed, that's volume. What's the unit of this going to be? Well, it's kilograms per meter cubed. And again, if you can't remember what the equation is, you can remember, well, I know density tells me what the mass of 1 meters cubed of it is. So kilograms divided by meters cubed, that will give me my density. Might be centimeters cubed instead, just be wary of that. Last but not least, what about percentages? People often freak out when it comes to percentages, but they're the easiest things in the world. To find out any percentage, we take the bit that we're concerned about, divide it by the lot, and then we times by 100 at the end to turn it from a decimal into a percentage. So how does this work for, say, efficiency? Efficiency is a percentage where we're concerned about how much of the energy going in is being used usefully. So we can say that the bit is the useful energy, divided by the lot, that's the total energy in, and then we can times by 100 at the end to turn it into a percentage. Just remember that if you have efficiency and you're being asked to find out useful energy or total energy in, first you need to turn it into a decimal. So if you're given a percentage, turn into decimal and then you can use it. You might be asked to calculate a percentage change in something. In this case, the bit is the change. What is the lot? Well, that's the original number, original amount, and again times by 100 at the end to turn it into a percentage. So there are lots of other equations that you have to use, like your Suvat equations, Newton's equations to motion, but you'll never have to remember those. You've also got your elastic potential energy. You have the SHC equation, the specific heat capacity equation. Again, you won't have to remember those. Just be aware that I haven't covered the equations here like that, but they will be in your exam. Have a look at the information in the question, have a look at what you're being asked to find, and figure out whether it's an equation that you have to remember or whether it's an equation that's in the back. Choose the right equation, then rearrange it, pop the numbers into your calculator, and Bob's your uncle. So I hope that helps. If it does, then please make sure you leave a like and leave a comment down below suggesting what you'd like to see next. And I'll see you next time.